Here's a guy with some of the goofiest proofs of God that I've ever heard.
But first, we must define our terms because millions of hours have been spent arguing about God without ever giving God a definition. That's as good as arguing about whether a who's a what's it exists. You'll never get anywhere. But we will get somewhere because we are defining God as a being or beings that created the world before us from nothing.
Well, we're off to an incoherent start. How do you create something from nothing? And what do you mean by the world before us?
Let's start off with proof number 1, the atom. It's the essence of logic to say that when there is an effect, there is a cause that was capable of causing that effect.
It's not the essence of logic, although effects do have causes by definition, but how do you discern what phenomena are effects? The mere fact that something exists is not evidence that it is an effect. This should be obvious because you don't believe that God's existence is evidence that God is an effect in need of a cause.
If the effect is, let's say, a particle accelerator, we must say that it was caused by a highly intelligent person. When we talk about the particle inside the particle accelerator, the atom, and we realize no human being can create something as small, powerful, and complex as an atom, that it must have been caused by a being far more intelligent than the scientists. And that's what a lot of people are referring to as God. And since everything is made of atoms, proof of God is the very fabric of existence.
That doesn't follow at all. First of all, it's not true that humans can't make atoms. All a human has to do is expose some protons to some electrons and they will combine into a hydrogen atom. Humans can also use particle accelerators to make other atoms by fusing particles together. Secondly, the mere fact that humans can't make something would not mean that such a thing must be made by a superhuman intelligence. I doubt you believe that God had to have been made by an intelligence even greater than God's. So the mere fact that something exists does not mean it has to be created at all, let alone by an intelligence.
Proof number 2, the synchronicity of nature. The mineral world, the vegetative world, and the animal world all work together seamlessly. One eats the other breathes the other's exhaust. They change color based on the season or the environment. We can watch thousands of hours of nature shows and still not grasp even a sliver of the majesty of nature. If creation is fueled by random events, there would be no such harmony. Therefore, these events are happening, by contrast, on purpose by the creator of nature, which is what a lot of people are calling God.
False dichotomy. Randomness and purposefulness are not the only two options. The fact that ecosystems are not random does not mean that there was any intelligence that put things in order. First of all, ecosystems destabilize all the time and eventually arrive at a new equilibrium. They are not always orderly. Secondly, the idea that purposefulness is the only alternative to randomness requires one to assume that the default state of reality is chaos and that order can only exist if it is deliberately imposed by some consciousness. This is a baseless assumption.
Proof number 3. Tradition from Adam, our family tree. What is history? Is not a huge part of history the testimony of men handed down from one generation to the next, like Josephus? What is genealogy? Is it not the science of being able to trace back our lineage to the Bible and therefore ultimately to the first man? And aren't the stories surrounding these human beings also part of genealogy? Well, our historic record that's been handed down by the Jews, aka the 3 million strong witness nation, is that the Bible is a true revelation from God. That revelation tells us a lot of history, and among that history is that Adam was the first man. And since stories surrounding genealogy are also a part of genealogy, we must say the account of the Bible that God created Adam is true. This is a part of all of our family trees. If you trace back your lineage, if you're able to trace it back far enough, you will wind up tracing it back to the Bible, which will trace it back to Adam, which will trace it back to God. So God is part of your family tree.
I've traced my genealogy. None of the records I've been able to find have any basis in the Bible. I also highly doubt you have records of every single ancestor going all the way back to Adam.
We have a tradition from Sinai. Number 4, the more consistent eyewitnesses you have to an event, the more likely it is that it happened. If that's the case, the most well-proven event in history is the revelation of God at the giving of the Bible on the 6th of the Hebrew month of Sivan on the year 1313 from creation in front of 2.5 million Jews.
Oh, do we have 2.5 million independent accounts of this event? As far as I can discern, there is only one account of this event. Apologists love to cite single accounts of events that allegedly took place in front of multiple people and expect us to treat them as being as convincing as multiple independent accounts. Christians love to do this with Paul's assertion that Jesus appeared to 500 people. The fact that the author of Exodus is one guy who says this event happened in front of millions of people still means that it's just one account.
Even today, you can ask any Jew's grandfather or great-grandfather whether he believed in the revelation at Sinai, and they will tell you that they do. And that's probably because it actually happened.
Sure, if your grandfather and great-grandfather say they believe something happened, it totally logically follows that it probably did.
Your DNA. Your DNA could stretch from the earth to the sun and back 600 times. And we're all 99.9% alike. And the human genome contains 3 billion base pairs of DNA. Did DNA, with all the above qualities, just evolve on its own? The suggestion is ludicrous. It is far more plausible that DNA came about by way of a being that's more intelligent and more precise than any human being alive today or ever.
Mutation and natural selection are directly observable phenomena that we can see shaping DNA. Why is a magical incantation a better explanation than that?
Some might call that God. Number 6, the planets revolving, the prime mover. The planets are moving, we can all see that. Anything moving has a mover, so what was the mover?
This is Aristotelian physics that we've known to be wrong since Newton. It in fact is not true that everything that is moving needs a mover. The only moving things that need a mover are things that were once at rest. The universe itself was never at rest, therefore it does not need a mover.
The Big Bang? Well, what was the mover for the Big Bang? The atheist is forced to say, against logic, that there isn't a need for a prime mover of the material of the Big Bang. The believer rightly says there is a prime mover, which itself did not need to be moved. That's really the only logical way to explain this situation we have in front of us, a situation in which trillions of galaxies down to Earth itself are all in motion. Incidentally, this is the way that Aristotle, one of the greatest minds in history, believed.
An even greater mind was Newton, who explained that Aristotle was wrong about this.
Number 7, who started the Big Bang? If all of creation was in that ball, who made that ball go boom? There must be something that preceded the universe and had the power to put all the trillion galaxies into motion.
Again, the universe didn't need anything to put it in motion because there was never a time when it was at rest. It wasn't put into motion because there was never a time when it wasn't already in motion.
Number 8, colors. We're told that God made a rainbow after the Great Flood. What are the odds that rain droplets can create the exact spectrum of colors?
What do you mean by the exact spectrum? As opposed to what? An inexact spectrum? What kind of spectrum would you expect a prism to produce if there were no God?
Did that just evolve from some random events? We're talking about inanimate stuff here. We can't say it evolved.
No, it's a consequence of photons behaving non-randomly.
Or is it more likely that the colors were created by an artistic creator who knows the beauty of color?
If God made color because it's beautiful, what was his motivation to make ugly things?
Number 10, the creation of a baby. How does a sperm and an egg become a conscious baby who then becomes a full-fledged man or woman? There's too many questions to ask.
Did your parents never give you this talk?
First of all, doesn't it violate the law of conservation of mass that a human being goes from being 0 pounds to being 8 pounds to being 150 pounds? Where does all this new mass come from?
Is this guy a troll? How could anyone be this stupid? Has he never heard of food?
Where does the consciousness come from? Was that in the Big Bang as well?
Consciousness is a process carried out by brains, not a thing.
Or was the consciousness, as well as the growth of the baby, given to the being because it has a consciousness of its own and has the ability to create new matter?
So babies grow by consciously creating new matter?
Number 11, the universe is larger than the Big Bang material. It doesn't make sense. In a similar problem, we're told that the raw materials of the Big Bang was very small. It was in a very small ball. The universe, however, is very large. In fact, it has trillions of galaxies. No matter how dense that ball is, there is no way it's fitting inside of it a trillion galaxies. It's ludicrous. It makes more sense that a being larger than a trillion galaxies created a trillion galaxies. Some might call a being that immense God.
How exactly do you calculate what could possibly fit into a singularity? Simply proclaiming infinite density to be absurd doesn't make it impossible.
The first combiner, who combined everything? Who fused the electron, the neutron, and the proton? Who fused hydrogen and oxygen to make water? Who fused the 4 types of nitrogen bases, adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, to make DNA?
Nobody, because none of those things are fused. Those particles and molecules are held together by electromagnetic forces, not fusion. Atoms and molecules chemically bond to one another. They don't fuse.
Is it logical to say they combined by random events?
No, that's why nobody says that. They combine through deterministic chemical interactions.
Or is it more logical to say they combined by purposeful events? There's no evolution to fall back on here. These are inanimate objects. These combinations were made extremely carefully by whoever did it.
Does this guy think that evolution is the only non-conscious process?
Someone with that level of care and precision and power at the microscopic level is what some might call God.
Or chemical bonds.
Number 13, a watch. Look at the watch you're wearing if you're wearing a watch. What if someone tried to tell you that the watch was created by random events? You'd say you're crazy.
We know how watches are made. We know that people make them. If we didn't know that watches are made by people, then it would be entirely reasonable to infer that they are natural phenomena. Since you believe that everything was created either by God or people, what would you even expect something that wasn't created by an intelligence to look like? How can you say that random chance can't create something that looks like that when you don't believe that random chance is responsible for the creation of anything? So you have no idea what something created by random chance even looks like.
Even if you gave them billions of years for it to happen, you'd still say they're crazy. You know it was created on purpose by someone who knew what they were doing. So why is the world, even more complex than a watch, any different?
Because the reason I know that watches are created by people has nothing to do with how complex they are. Complexity is not the same thing as deliberate design.
Number 14, a similar one, a painting. Look at a painting in your house. Is it more likely that that painting was done randomly, or is it more likely that it was done intentionally with great skill?
This is just the same argument with a different example.
Realize that the painting is just mimicking the outside world. The outside world itself is an even greater painting than any painter could do. Wouldn't that painter have to be something like God?
What do you mean by greater?
NDEs, near-death experiences. The Lancet Medical Magazine out of England has reported thousands of cases of people who were clinically dead, and yet their life went on.
Then they aren't really dead, are they? The thing about near-death experiences is that they can't reveal anything about the afterlife because they're not post-death experiences. If you want me to listen to somebody describe the afterlife and take them seriously, I have to see their brain in a state of necrosis before they do so. To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.